What's up, family? Out here in nature again. Um, this is where I come when I don't have to work. You know what I mean? And this is my sanctuary. This is my safe haven. This is my refuge. This is where I clear my mind. This is where, man, I just reconnect and unplug from the matrix. You know what I mean? Of work and just all the chaos of everyday living. You know what I mean? Family, I want to have a heart to heart with you guys today. I've shared this story in the past, one of my earliest videos, but I felt the need walking out here to talk about this again, but from a totally different perspective. And I'm kind of going to share two stories in one. You know what I mean? Um, I'm asked a lot, man, what got you on this path? What got you, doing what you're doing? You know? And to be honest with you, family, again, I grew up in East San Jose, you know, um, in California. Um, when I left in '88, we had over 800 some thousand people that lived there. Um, Violence is crazy, gangs were everywhere. Um, there's a lot of stupid stuff going on. The dope game was big, you know. Um, it is what it is, you know what I mean? Um, one of the guys that I used to hang out with by the name of Mitchell Ziegler, he was a Crip, you know, and we used to do some stupid stuff together, you know what I mean? And my aunt had signed me up for the Air Force when I was 17 years old, and as it was getting time for me to graduate, um, I was like, man, I'm not going, you know what I mean? And I told him, we was in the car one day, and I told him, I said, man, I'm not going. He was like, what do you mean you're not going? I said, man, I'm not going into the Air Force, man. I'm not going to fight some other man's battles, you know what I mean? I'm not going to fight some man's war. I'm not going to go fight the man's war, you know? And he just, And I was like, what's wrong with you, man? I thought you'd be happy. We could hang out and just run the streets and do what we do. I thought he would be happy for me. He was like, nah, man, you getting up off these streets. And I just looked at him. I said, what are you talking about, man? He said, you got to get up off these streets. You got to go into the military. I said, man, I ain't got to do nothing. You know what I mean? It's like, what you tripping about, Mitch? Man, I thought you would be cool. He said, you got to get up off these streets. One of us got to make it up off these streets. A whole lot of us gonna die in these streets. You have the potential to get up off these streets and do something righteous with your life. If I see you on these streets, and he put out his little piece, and laid it on his lap. It's like, if I see you on these streets, I won't be seeing you on these streets. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, what the you tripping, bro? What you tripping about, man? And it's like, Broadway, if I see you on these streets, I won't be seeing you on these streets. You better do something righteous with your life. And it took me a long time to understand what he was talking about. And I knew what Mitchell was about. I knew what we'd done in the past. I knew what he meant, you know what I mean? And it took me a long time to understand what he was talking about, you know what I mean? And it wasn't until later, as I matured and as I grew, that I understood that, man, he was telling me, man, Elijah, you could do something with your life. You can do something with your life. You don't have to be out here banging. You don't have to be out here slanging and hustling and grimy and all this other stupid stuff. You could do something righteous with your life. Get up off those streets. And not just get up off the streets, because a lot of people get up off the streets, but they still don't do anything righteous with their life. And what I mean, they still don't reach back. They still don't help anybody out. They about them, They get their stuff and they get their family, and man, they just all consumed within themselves. They're not doing anything to help humanity. They're not doing anything to help anybody else. And it's not that we have to do anything to help anybody else, but man, we got to be a beacon of hope, a beacon of light, a beacon of joy to other people. It's not just about us. You know what I mean? It's not just about what you accumulate in life. It's not just about your job, your career, your finances, your home, your cars, your toys, and all that other stupid stuff. It's about helping society. It's about reaching back to those that can't do it, reaching back to those that don't know how to do it, reaching back to those that are confused, helping the elderly. You know what I mean? That's what life is about. And so I share that to say that, So often people sit back and think, man, you know what? You must have great mentors. You must have great role models. Man, you must have great preachers and teachers in your life that got you up off the streets, that got you doing something right with your life. And look at you, bloop, 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 bloop. And it's like, no, I didn't. You know what I mean? I didn't have those type of people in my life. I had a gangbanger. Somebody's right now in the penitentiary. You know what I mean? And been in and out of the penitentiary for the longest. Because that's the life he lived. That's the life he chose to live. But I'm here doing what I can because he saw something in me. He saw some potential in me when nobody else did. Family, it's not about where you come from. It's not about how you start out. It's how you end up. I'm going to say that again. It's not about how you start out in the race, in your journey. It's how you end up. Second story. I used to be real judgmental, extremely judgmental. Ooh. And it's like I deal with a lot of judgment now. And it's my karma, you know what I mean? I deal with a lot of self-righteous, judgmental, egotistical, narcissistic, dogmatic people, you know what I mean? And it's like, oh, okay. That's how I used to be. You know what I mean? I I ain't mad at them. You know what I mean? That's how I used to be. That's how I used to come across. And so it's like you reap what you sow. You know what I mean? And so, um, years ago, my late wife and I used to go to antique stores. You know, we used to love going to antique stores and buying different Asian artifacts and things of that nature, Asian and African artifacts. And we went to the store in Fresno, and there was this guy that owned the store, and he was homosexual. And stay with me, I'm not judging homosexuals or anything of that nature. Okay, don't get it twisted. But he was on the phone and he was talking and he was just like, hey, 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 you know, and it's like, oh, just his voice was just cringy, just like, oh, you know, it was working my nerves, it was working my patience, you know what I mean? It was like, oh, it was just nerve wracking, just irritating, you know what I mean? And so my wife and I are looking around some stuff, and I knew, we knew that she had cancer. She didn't know to what stage it was. I knew that it was stage 4 breast cancer. And man, I knew that she wasn't gonna be around long. You know what I mean? And I knew this was gonna be the last birthday, last, you know, anniversary, everything that she was going to have. Stay with me, I'm going somewhere. And so her birthday is March 7th. It was February 2015. Um, we're in the store, and she's always wanted these 7 porcelain um, Chinese figurines or Japanese figurines, and we could never find them. And man, walking around, I see this huge artifact that I want in the back of the store. This Japanese mud man, huge piece. And so I go get the guy and the owner of the store. This piece is about 495 bucks, you know, and it's like, I'm getting it. I want that. You know, my birthday's February 20th. I'm getting ready to buy it for myself for my birthday. You know what I mean? And so I go looking for the guy, and he's putting out these 7 porcelain dolls. You know, he's putting them in a curio. And I'm like, oh my God, those are freaking bad. And he's talking to me, and he's like, you like those? I said, I like them. I said, but you know what? My wife would love them. And so I'm asking him, I said, how much are they? And so he tells me how much they are. I'm like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? And we're talking almost $2,000 for the set, right? And I'm like, okay. He was like, well, actually, they're 2,100 for the set before taxes. And so he's like, we do have like a 30-day layaway. He said, you know, you could just put some money down and take some, pick up the pieces. And I was like, okay, cool. I said, well, check this out. I want 3 of them right now. You know, my wife's birthday's next week. I want 3 of them today, you know, and is I'm get them for her for Valentine's Day. Her birthday is March 7th, so I was getting them like a couple of weeks before her birthday. And so I was like, I want a couple of them now for Valentine's Day, three of them now for Valentine's Day, and I'll pick up the rest of them next week. Can I do that? And he was like, yeah. I said, well, let me go get my wife. She's walking around the store. That way she could pick out the three that she want to take home with her now. And he's like, okay. And so he was like, well, I thought you wanted to talk to me about my mudman in the bag. I said, I do, but I don't have the money for him right now, because I'm going to get these pieces for my wife. He was like, well, I could hold it for you. And I said, yeah, I don't know. I'll just wait for it, right? And so he was like, okay. So I go get Cecilia. She comes over, and she's like a little girl, She's just like, just all just in love with him, right? And man, just smiling, and she's just glowing and everything, right? And so I look at her, I say, pick out the three you want to take home today. And she's like, what? I said, pick out the three you want. She's like, pick out three? I said, yeah, pick out three. He's going to let you take three of them home today. And next week, when I get paid, I'll come back and I'll pick up the other four. And she just cheesing and just like, in awe, right? And so she's like, now she's confused because she got choices. You know what I mean? She don't know what three she would have picked out. Stay with me, I'm going somewhere. She picks out her three. And he wraps up the other four pieces. I pay him. And I tell my man I'll come back and, get that other piece, the mudman in the back, if it's still available. And so the following week, I'll go get the four pieces for my wife. And we don't go back up there. Stay with me. My wife get progressively worse, and so we don't really leave the ranch too much anymore after that, And so she passed away in December 2015, and I totally forgot about the mudman, right? So I'm on my way to China in January. I applied for my passport. My wife and I always went to go to China. To study martial arts and just do all this other stuff, but we never could go because of our work schedule. And so it's like, you know what, man, I'm gonna go spread her ashes all over China. That's what I felt led to do. And so I'm applying for my passport, waiting for it to come in, and it's like, man, I'm gonna go see if that guy has that piece up there still. So I drive back up there and walk to the back. And this guy's on the phone again, and he's talking, and it's just like his voice is cringy and just like, it's just nerve-wracking to me, right? It's just like, It's like, man, I can't stand that, can't stand his voice. It was just, And so I go back and I look, the piece is there. And I'm like, oh, thank you, God. And so I can hear God saying to me, what's yours is yours. It's always yours. Can't anybody take what's yours. What I have for you, can't nobody take from you. Stay with me, I'm going somewhere. And so I'm like, thank you. And so I go get the guy, and we're walking back up. He's talking, and he's like, man, I haven't seen you guys in a long time. I said, yeah, and I don't tell him what's going on. He says, where's your beautiful wife at? He's talking about Cecilia. He's like, man, I loved how she did her hair. I loved how she did her makeup. She was so gorgeous, so pretty, and did all this other stuff. And tears start rolling down my eyes, right? She just passed away like 2 months prior, right? He doesn't know, and it's still a fresh wound to me, right? And so I look at him and I tell him, I said, she passed away from cancer in December, on December 4th. And he stops and he just starts bawling. I said, when we came up here and I bought those pieces for her, I knew then that she was going to pass away. That's why I didn't get this piece, and I wanted to get her these pieces. And he's bawling and bawling. And I'm like tripping because I don't want people thinking that I said anything or did anything to this guy to offend him, to hurt him, or anything of that nature, right? And so I'm looking around the store just like paranoid right now, right? And this guy just reaches up and he gives me the biggest bear hug, and I'm tripping because this dude just gave me this freaking hug, and he's holding me tight, right? And he's crying and just sobbing, and he's like, I remember you, you're such a good man, and da-da-da-da. He's talking all this stuff, right? And he's like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. He's just crying. And in his hug, I felt the hug of God. Stay with me. I felt God embrace me. I felt God squeezing me. Stay with me. I'm going somewhere. I forgot about the fact that this guy was homosexual. I completely ignored the fact at that moment as he's hugging me, after a few seconds of him holding me, I forgot about the fact that this guy was hugging me, that this guy was homosexual. I forgot about the fact that he's white, you know what I mean? And that he owns the story. Nothing else mattered. Nothing else mattered at that moment. All that mattered was that, man, I felt more God in that embrace than I did from anybody else during my wife's passing or anything else that was coming up to me, talking about God and all this other stuff, which I wasn't trying to hear at that time because I'm grieving my wife. You know what I mean? And it's not that I have an issue with God. I don't. You know what I mean? But I wasn't trying to hear no religious stuff. I wasn't trying to hear that she's in heaven with God and God wanted her and, God plucked the most beautiful. I wasn't trying to hear that crap at that time. You know what I mean? None of that stuff meant anything to me. It was just cliche. You know what I mean? And so this guy's been genuine in his affection and his love. You know what I mean? And so to the point to where, man, I reach back and I'm holding him now. Tears are coming down my eyes. We're both standing there, just two grown men crying, holding each other. And he stopped and we let go. And he looks at me. He says, you know what? You're a good man. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you this peace. God is going to bless you. This is what he's telling me. God is going to bless you. God is going to use you. And he's going to bring an amazing woman into your life. And so he's like, that peace is yours. I'm gifting it to you. And I reach out and I give him a hug, you know what I mean? Just in gratitude, just in appreciation. He picks the piece up, carries it up front, wraps it up, gives it to me. I don't have to pay nothing, no taxes, nothing. He just gives me the piece. It's $495 piece. He just gives me. I go out in my truck and I sit there and I break down and start crying. I start sobbing. Why? Because I was so judgmental towards this guy. You know what I mean? I was condemning this dude to hell. I was so anti-homosexuality. I couldn't stand his voice. His voice irritated me. His voice irked me. The presence of him irked me. I was condemning him to hell. And yet, that's who God used to show me love when I needed it the most. Yet that's who God used to manifest himself and to hold me when I needed to be held the most. I've never felt the presence of God from any Christian, any Muslim, any Buddhist, from anyone, like I did from that homosexual. God could use anybody, anything. I understand that. But the point is, God had to break me of my judging nature. God had to break me of my judging mentality, of my arrogant, egotistical, narcissistic, dogmatic ways. And he used this man. At that moment, it became clear to me as I sat there breaking down, crying, just broken. I'm condemning this man to hell. I'm so anti his lifestyle, and yet he's showing me love. I'm so against what he stands for, and yet he symbolizes love. I don't care what your belief system is. It don't matter. I don't care what your lifestyle is. It don't matter. It don't matter to me. I don't care what your politics are. None of that stuff mean anything to me. All I hope for is that you show the world love. You give the world love, unconditional love. Without all the dogma, without all the religion, without all the stupid stuff attached to it. Because once you attach all that stuff to love, then love stops being love. and it becomes something else. You can't have crap attached to love and say it's love. No, it's conditional. It's based on these parameters that you've established, and that's not love. Love is unconditional. That man, without even knowing it, broke me of my phobia, of my fear, of my discrimination. That man, without even knowing it, turned the light on my arrogance and my ignorance. That man, without saying anything, without preaching, without giving me scriptures, without anything, broke me of my religious dogma. That man broke me of my intolerance. My hands are kind of grimy and dirty because I was just playing in the dirt. That's another way of grounding. It's another way of just reconnecting and getting back. Don't think I just have dirty hands. But we have to grow up, family. We have to grow up. We have to understand that, man, we got some ways about us that ain't godlike. We all have some ways about us that ain't godlike. My hope and prayer is that we humble ourselves. We humble ourselves and acknowledge the fact that we're not completely godlike in every way of our lives. And that's why we're still here, so that we can continue our growth and development, and so that we can be a bigger, brighter beacon for the world, to show them love, to show them light, to give them hope. Without dogma, hope without religious crap, hope without all the politics, without all the stupid racism, hope and love. It's crazy because when I sit back and I look at all the people that walked this planet, that made such a huge impact, you know, they're so criticized, they're so put down, you know what I mean? And what I mean, who am I talking about? When I look at the life of Jesus, you know what I mean? When I look at the life of Muhammad, when I look at the life of Buddha, when I look at the life of Mother Teresa, everybody has something to say about these people. You know what I mean? The religious fanatics, oh, they wasn't Christian, they didn't accept Jesus Christ, and what. It's always the religious people. Always the religious people that want to dog everybody else out. It's always the religious people. Always the religious people that has something negative to say about anybody and everybody. The religious people had a problem with Jesus. The religious people have a problem with Mother Teresa. The religious people have a problem with everybody, as long as they're not doing it the way they want them to do it. May we lose our religion and find God. As long as you have religion, you'll never have God. You won't have God in religion. You won't have a true connection with God in religion. You'll never be free in religion. You'll always be dogmatic. You'll always be judgmental in religion. I love you guys. Happy healing. Peace.